Now let's take a look at the next section in our Flash tab. This is Images and Sounds, and it primarily controls compression. Now we all know that our SWF files are nice and small, and they get that way by compressing everything that they can inside of them. And that includes our images and our sound files. Those generally are the biggest things in our Flash movies anyway. What we have here are default settings for JPEG compression, and this will be used automatically on anything that's not already a JPEG. You can see it's set to 80, which is a little conservative. You can actually get away with a setting of 70 or so, and not sacrifice too much quality. Now let's take a look at how these are applied. I'm actually going to click OK to close out of my published settings just for the moment, and let's go over and take a look at our library. We've got a bunch of images that we've imported into our document, so let me just expand this panel down just a little bit. And I think we put most of our graphics inside of the Portfolio Photos folder. You can see that all the bitmaps we've used so far are already JPEGs, and Flash is smart about these. Since they're already JPEGs, it just leaves them alone. We can check up on this by clicking on any one of the JPEGs. I'll pick out Gargoyle here, and we can go either to the Options menu, or you can right-click. I'll go down here to Properties, and this will tell us all we need to know about that particular JPEG. It tells us where we got it from, how big it is, but it also tells us the compression. And you'll notice that for quality, it's automatically set to Use Imported JPEG Data, which means it's not going to recompress it. So basically you have a choice when you work with images. You can either bring them in as non-JPEGs and have Flash compress them for you, or you can import them as JPEGs already and Flash will just leave them alone. Now we can see down here the size of the file and all kinds of information about it, but what I'd like to do is import something that's not a JPEG so we can see how that gets handled. So I'm going to click OK, and let's go over to our File menu. We'll choose Import. I'll pick Import to Library. And out in our Chapter 9 folder, we should have that tulip file. That's actually a TIFF format. So let's just select it, and we'll click Open. That should be included in our library now. So let me just close up our Portfolio folder, and there's our tulip TIFF. I'll do the same thing we just did. I'll click on it, and we'll go up to the Options menu up here at the top for the Library panel, and choose Properties. Now for this one, you can see that it's by default set to use the published setting of 80. So for anything that's not a JPEG, by default, it's just going to be compressed by whatever's sitting in our published settings. If we change that to 70, that'll be the setting used for all the images. You can also go to each individual bitmap like we have here and set a custom setting. I'll just click on the Custom button, and I can type in whatever JPEG setting I want. Now I'm going to use an extremely low one here just for example. I'm going to use a 30, and I can click the Test button and actually see what that looks like. And it pretty much breaks up this entire image. But it gets it all the way down to 5K. So now what we're seeing is we can manage our bitmaps either item by item by going to its Property menu, using the published settings, or by pre-compressing them into JPEGs and bringing them in that way. Let me just click OK and we'll close out of this box. Now I'm going to go back over to my published settings again. We'll go to File, Publish Settings. And we'll see that we have the same kind of settings down here for our audio files as well. Here we can substitute MP3 for the JPEG setting. If you bring in a sound file that's already an MP3, it'll be left alone, just like JPEGs would. But if it's any other sound format, by default it'll be compressed using these settings. Now I do like to point out here that the default settings for an MP3 are 16 kilobits per second, and if you've got an iPod, you know that's a pretty low quality sound. So I kind of warn people, either set this value higher using the Set button here, and you can pick out whatever rate you want, or what I actually like to do for sound files is I like to make sure I'm setting them right in the library one by one. You can get away with a lot of compression on a sound effect like an explosion or a gunshot, but if you've got human voice or music, you may want to listen to it to see how it goes. Now, if I click OK, just so we can go back over to our library again, we do have a couple of sounds in here. There's my Flash groove. Now, once again, that's an MP3. We'll open it up and take a look at its properties. And you see Use Imported MP3 Quality is set. If I deselect that, I can set whatever compression I want, and we have a test button so you can hear what it sounds like before you commit to it. So in general, I usually use this method to compress all my sounds, and that way I know what they're sounding like and how big they are before I leave the program. I'll set this one back to the way it was and click OK.